I say to him to go. I tell her not to go. I ask her to go. Please repeat. Did he say to come over? He said to come over. Didn't you tell her to fix it? I didn't tell her to fix it. Did she ask you not to do it? She asked me not to do it. Will you tell them to bring it? I'll tell them to bring it. Didn't she ask them to be quiet? She didn't ask them to be quiet. Will she tell him to get away? She'll tell him to get away. Did they ask you to study harder? They asked me to study harder. Did she say to come back later? She said to come back later. Didn't they say not to sleep there? They didn't say not to sleep there. Won't you ask them to get up? I won't ask them to get up. Did she tell you to remember that? She told me to remember that. Didn't she say not to tell him that? She didn't say not to tell him that. Won't she tell him not to call her again? She won't tell him not to call her again. Did she ask them to get it? She asked them to get it. Will you tell her to follow you? I'll tell her to follow me. Does he tell her not to stand there? He tells her not to stand there. Didn't you tell them to drink it? I didn't tell them to drink it. Do you want to tell him to come back tonight? I want to tell him to come back tonight. Does she have to ask him to give her the money? She has to ask him to give her the money. Who said to do that? She said to do that. Who said to take it? My mom said to take it. Did she tell you to finish it? To finish it there. Did he need to tell her to call her mom? He needed to tell her to call her mom. When will you tell them to leave? I'll tell them to leave at 9. What do you have to tell her not to do? I have to tell her not to wash that. Who asked them not to come over? She asked them not to come over. What did he tell you to look at? He told me to look at his new car. What did you get to ask her to do? I got to ask her to buy that sweater for me. Where did you tell him to put it? I told him to put it on the chair. What will you be asking her to open? I'll be asking her to open the box. When did she ask you not to stay there? She asked me not to stay there yesterday. Is it okay to tell them to go away? It's okay to tell them to go away. Did she tell you to quit smoking? She told me to quit smoking. Who did she ask you not to meet? She asked me not to meet them. Where are you going to tell him not to go? I'm going to tell him not to go to school. Who will tell them to talk to her? I'll tell them to talk to her. Have you got to say to her to study? I've got to say to her to study. What did he just tell them to sell? He just told them to sell their computers. Who was able to ask them to buy it? He was able to ask them to buy it. Where will he tell them to rest? He'll tell them to relax at the hotel.